everyone. Welcome to another day in the Milky Way. Thank you all for coming tonight, and we're going to have a great show with my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Thank you for being here. It's wonderful to be back, everyone.
And it's also wonderful to be front, too. And we greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And we continue to pray that y'all are doing as well as possible in these weird times.
Yeah. Sorry about the little delay there, but hey, getting that stupid computer to work sometimes is a little bit rough, it seems to be glitchy lately. I don't know if it seems like everybody's having a little problems with the computery stuff. My head.
It took 35 minutes tonight for Microsoft to re-up itself and whatever it had to do to start over tonight. So I was like, come on, computer. Come
Yeah.
on, computer.
All right. And thank you for everybody to come in. Travis Reculp is in the house. Susie Q and Elderberry and Cat's in the house. We'll just go cat. But anyway, thank you all for coming tonight. I'm going to be talking about the Navajos. I was reading this book about Kit Carson. I don't know if you all have heard about Kit Carson. There's Pod Joe and Amber Dawn. Yes, there we are. Anyway, let's see. So, anyway, I was reading about Kit Carson, and he did a lot of work down in Taos and down in New Mexico area, and with all the Navajos. And he was an Indian agent, and he talked about the Indians down there, which got me onto the Navajos tonight, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. But as the Indian agent, he would I found a lot of interesting things, how the government, even he said in his autobiography that the government wasn't, feeding them or whatever. They chased them off the land, their land. They went, literally with, the cavalry, the dragoons, they called them, the horseback riders, the cavalry. We call the cavalry, but they were the dragoons. And they went out there and they chased the Indians off and warred with them and, killed a lot of them. He went as far, at this point, he was pretty old in his age. He was pretty crippled up. But they went as far as cutting down their orchards of peaches and burning their crops to the ground so they had nothing. And then they moved them to a reservation where there was little next to nothing there. And then the places where they could get food or gifts, they said, even before this all happened, they made it made it hard for them, because he said in his autobiography that they would make them travel hundreds of miles to get stuff and gifts. They called it gifts. And they would give them here, we'll give you a blanket. And they're like, I've traveled 100 or 200 miles to get here, and you gave me a blanket? Or we gave you a little bit of meat, or we gave you, some trinkets. Here's a little flour, and here's a little sugar, and here's a little coffee or something. And the Indians are thinking, I've traveled hundreds of miles to get stuff that you promised us, and you give me almost nothing. What is, a 5-pound sack of flour? Is that worth you traveling hundreds of miles? They said some of them traveled 300 miles to get there. And I'm like, wow, no wonder why these Indians were kind of messed up and mad. If you don't know where the Navajo are from, they're from like the Four Corners area. And I do have a map somewhere
Of New Mexico.
Yes. Let's see if I can shrink this down and
Arizona.
Yes. Arizona, New Mexico. Oh, come on. Stupid thing. When you want something, then it just isn't there, Wonderful.
I had to interject that because there are Four Corners areas other than down there in the Southwest.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm pulling that up. I got to pull this thing. But anyhow, here we go. I'll present this. That way you guys can see what I'm seeing or I'm knowing either way. But here we go. Now, this is the Four Corners area. Right here, we got Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah. Their reservations kind of like right in the middle of all of this, the whole thing. And if you're not familiar with that, then you might be familiar with this place here, which is Monument Valley. I mean, you've seen this on Westerns and things like that, probably plenty of times. It's, you know, one of the more famous places. So, let's see, let's do this. I'm trying to change the layout. There we go. Now we can see a little bit better. But anyway, Monument Valley, and they do, this is native land here. And so if you go there, you got to get permits and things to go on native land. You can't just travel there and drive around and climb the bluffs and things like that. You got to, they watch this closely. So that's kind of the thing. Like you said, here they are. This was Navajo land. Of course, you had the Apaches over here, and they traveled all the way down to New Mexico and Mexico. And they spoke the Athabascan language. Athabascan, I guess that's how you say it. They weren't a sturdy tribe, put it that way. They're not the kind of tribe that conquers lands. They were made up of tons of small little tribes. And that was kind of their downfall in ways, because there was no big giant leader of them. So they were easily taken over. Nobody spoke for the whole people. So, you know, it's just little bands. They did take over with the, you know, when they were some of the first to have horses. Oh, come on. That ain't the one I wanted. Oh, come on. Okay, this is the one I wanted. They were some of the first to have horses. Even though that they had horses, they did more trading with other tribes. They were some of the first Indians to have contact with the Spanish as the conquistadors came over, and we're going to get to that in a second. Okay, and of course, the first contact with the Navajo was in 1540. In 1493, of course, the year that the discovery of the New World, yada yada yada. The Spanish. This was most of the Navajo ended up speaking two languages, Spanish and Navajo, of course. The Southwest, they always been in the Southwest, lying beyond the imaginary line, 100 miles west of the Azores and the Cape Verdes Islands. Upon this, Spain based their claims to the New World, of course. Not until 1513 did European explorers venture into the interior of North America. Previous to this time, they had mere touched upon the shores of the great Western continent. So, you know, until they arrived and discovered the Hopis during the summer of 1540, where the Navajos were already in Hopi Providence. The first recorded contact between the Navajos and the Spanish invaders came in 1583 in the area of Danaha, I guess, and an expedition by Antonio de Espejo, refers to the Cuerzo Indians near Mount Taylor. The Spanish also at times referred to the Navajos as Apaches or Apache de Navajo, leading into some confusion for future historians. Yes, because the Navajo and the Apaches spoke the same type of language, but There's the but in there. The Navajos were a more, I should say, peaceful tribe in some respects, whereas the Apaches were a very warring tribe. They were very hostile. You note any hostile Indians. The Spaniards named the Apache bands according to their traits and locale. Yes. The Jakarta Apaches, and then there was the Apache de Navajo, which they borrowed the name, blah, blah, blah. The Navajo named for Spanish is Nakaya, meaning those who wander around, referring to the various expeditions that frequently came into Navajo country. That the Navajos considered themselves the aristocrats of the Southwest. They italically admitted by calling themselves dying, the people. The people. They're always the people. I think there's a lot of other tribes that say the same thing. The Navajo name for the Spaniards is Nikaya, meaning those who wander around. Okay, I did that part. They're Athabascan stock. I can't even read this. Are generally agreed that they came from the north, drifting into the area, now occupying less than 1,000 years ago. In earliest historical times, they were found wandering over what is now New Mexico and eastern Arizona and southern Utah and Colorado. Their present reservation, while much smaller than their original range, is in the same area. That is the one thing. In 1868, they were kept on all the Navajo were rounded up and kept on a reservation near San Carlos, which was hell, I guess. There was no food, no place to grow anything. And in 1868, they were put on a reservation in their own homeland. As you notice, they were known for their unique patterns on their blankets. I'm sure you all heard of Navajo blankets. They occupied the country, but finding the Pueblo people better fitted for agriculture, they generously gave them the valley lands and kept the high grassy uplands for themselves. Yes, the Navajo are known for raising sheep and things like that. The Navajo is also appropriated women when suited to him to do so, with the result that his race is probably a compound of all southwestern Indian stocks, which we've talked about before, where they they raid a tribe and they would take or trade, marry from other Indian bands. You got a nice woman, I'll trade you 2 horses. So they didn't care. And I know you said there was a tribe out there that would not intermix bloodlines. And I can't remember the name of that. David, do you remember the name of that tribe that you said that didn't mix bloodlines?
The Tlingit up in Alaska. There were certain, you could go with A and B could marry, and C and D could marry, but a CB could not, or an AD could not marry. And they were very strict about it. Something I'd like to bring out here, talk about the Navajos. I've known several Navajo over the years. And if folks remember the Navajo code talkers.
Yep. I'm going to get to them.
Well, all right.
Yeah. I got some Navajo code talker talk in here soon. Just let me.
I wanted to say something about that. The high percentage of Navajo men who are in the armed services is higher than any other native or any other indigenous peoples. They may not have been a warring nation, but the men are they're very courageous, and they join the Marines most of the time. Anyway, I'll shut up now.
Oh, yeah. See, S. Lee knows. The Navajos hold the original January 6th, 1864, the Scorched Earth campaign start point. Yeah, they, but anyway, okay, I gotta get rid of this. Okay, the first sheep were adopted by the Navajos were the Churaro breed, which is an and the Illusion stock. The Chararo provides a long, smooth, and relatively greaseless wool, which is easily hand spun over time. Other breeds were introduced to the area and interbred with the Chararo. Today, there are relatively few bred Chararo sheep among the Navajo, although there is a movement to increase the number of Chararo sheep because of the demand for its wool by the native weavers. I think I had some of these kind of sheep at one point when I had my farm. They were kind of neat. They didn't have real long wool. Their wool never got really long, and they had spots on them, as you can kind of see here. I know I had the ones they had spots like this and pretty colors. They were really neat sheep. They were small too. They weren't that big sheep, you know. Okay, and there's the lands. Of course, these people live mostly in this kind of country where there's nothing for those things to eat. Well, neither do people either. It's really pretty, but I don't know if I'd want to live there because there's really no water. It's pretty dry. High desert plains. Very pretty. Great place to vacation, I would say. Who doesn't love to climb on the big natural bridges, right? Okay. Great place to go for a horse ride too, but they film tons of westerns out here. You know, Monument Valley. Oh man. You know, I don't know when you couldn't turn the TV on and see Monument Valley. It's currently in the process of.
That's one of the states I have, one of the places I've not seen.
Yeah, I've never
been traveling around.
There's your code talkers, Navajo code talkers, the unwritten record. Yes, their language isn't. They didn't have it written down, and during the war, these guys were recruited, and they were always successful. The Japanese never learned how to break the code. So there you go. Navajo code talkers.
I had the opportunity, and I live south of Albany, Georgia, where there's a Marine base. And I had the opportunity to meet and speak with one of the original code talkers who was on Iwo Jima. He gave a talk at the Marine base, and we were to escort him anyway, but had a chance to speak with him one-on-one. And in having the discussion with him, they came up. They didn't have a word for tank, for example. They didn't have a word for certain types of airplanes or bombers. So they had to make up things in their own language to say, tank. They could say the number, but they didn't know what kind of tank. So they had to invent words from their own, like turtle, turtle with the shell, turtle with the half shell, and they're like, the Japanese couldn't figure out, that it was, the Navajo were just talking in their own language. The code was the fact that they had to make up words for tanks and airplanes and battleships, and mortar shells,
Yeah, because that wouldn't have been in the language of them, because they never had that at that, back in the Indian days.
Right, exactly. So, but that's one of the reasons why they couldn't break the code, because they barely knew. They had just made it up, basically.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree with you. They were very. It was a very good time. They said that especially what I read today was that without the code talkers, they would have never won Iwo Jima. They never would have made it there. So, thanks to them.
And Iwo Jima's, they had issues on Iwo Jima.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Japanese were really buried in there.
Yeah, that was a bad time. Okay. Then we got they're known, well, of course they're raising the sheep, but they're known for weaving those blankets. And look at this is their loom, you know. Can you imagine out here in the hot sun? I mean, I don't know how many of you been to you know, out in Arizona, New Mexico area, but it's hot and these guys are out there weaving blankets. Of course, you got, you know, their places they lived, and you see that it's just a small earth covered home, very little wood, no electricity. People still live in those on those reservations. They're just made out of logs covered with dirt, mud, whatever. You got the hole in the roof here, kind of like some of those do on the plains, you know, same type of thing. Do you notice there's no blanket over the door like in some of those places? Either that or it's rolled up, but I haven't seen one yet. This is Ship Rock. Now, there's a legend that says the Indians were around Ship Rock and it was struck by lightning, and the god said, you know, you can have Ship Rock, but don't ever go on it. Don't ever go and climb on Ship Rock. So they're not allowed to do that, believe it or not. It almost looks like a big giant. Everybody talks about tree stumps. It looks like almost a giant tree stump, doesn't it? It broke off. And these could be giant tree stumps. Here's a Native American in his garb. Here's the Hogan, a house of earth and sky. There you go. You have what you make your house out of what you got. And of course, when you have these places, I mean, you're out there in the middle of nowhere, living in a Hogan. And this is, you know, the interpretation from, you know, an older picture. And this is what, if you met one back in the day, this is about what they would look like. And there you go. Navajo blanket, of course. I don't know what that, you know what that thing he's got in his hand is? I don't know what that is. Maybe starting fire?
It's a spinning toy. That the arm that he's got his hand on, if you go up and down with it, it'll spin the wheel. And it might have been some type of a way to spin wool.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's why I kind of picked that picture, because I didn't know what the heck that was. I thought maybe you'd know. Cool. Interesting.
And he's grinning at the camera. How many times you see an Indian grin?
Not very often.
But see, he's got like, ha, 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 you know, show me how to use this thing. And he's like, what? You don't know how to use it? Anyway, that's the impression I get.
Yeah, it's the first one. You know, he doesn't have a frown. He's kind of cracking a smile. Almost cracking a smile. He looks happy anyway. So there you go. Back in the day, this is what they would have been. Little earthen branch hut with, you know, a little Hogan living out in the prairies. Of course, they had dogs and hunted animals out on the prairie until they got the horses. And then they became, you know, they had, like I said, they still didn't travel. They weren't very nomadic kind of people like the Plains Indians or the Comanches or whatever. They pretty much stayed put in their little areas. Of course, you know, if you're in those areas like Monument Valley, there's little bit next to nothing. The more people you have, the less supplies you're going to have. I mean, this just gives you a little bit of, you know, when you see these horses and things, how big those rocks really are. In the pictures, it doesn't really, they look big, but, you know, this tells you how big those rocks are compared to the horses. Look at the little horses and the dog, and them rocks are huge. I mean,
and you don't see much vegetation.
No vegetation. Exactly. Where's your horse going to eat? Like I said, nice place of vacation, but I don't know if I want to live there. And there you go. There's an old picture. Yeah. Kind of cool to find these old pictures.
Yeah, see how shaggy the horses are also.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, it must be winterish time because look at they got a lot of blankets on.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't be riding out there with I'm trying to see, look at they got stirrups too. Those look like they might have an army saddle if those are metal stirrups. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a stirrup there. He's got some sort of saddle. See, he's holding onto the saddle horn there. Yeah.
Yeah, but see? That the Spanish had some of those saddles were real real light saddles.
Yeah.
They basically were stirrups and a horn.
Oh, look, he's got some kid on the back. I just see a foot here, and I'm like, oh man, he's got a little kid on the back, and so does she.
Yeah.
I see foot sticking out there. They're riding double. I didn't notice that. Oh, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I see the houses in the background. Those are those adobe houses with the stuck in the rock, or pueblos or whatever they call them.
Yep.
That's probably a more modern picture. They got bits in their mouths and stuff, but
not too modern.
No, here's these women. They're weaving a blanket out in the hot sun. Nonetheless, they look really happy about it.
And right behind that girl on the left is a Hogan.
Yep, there's the Hogan house. Yep, in Monument Valley. Look at that. Also, look at she doesn't even have shoes
on too.
Yep, there's a fence back there. She don't even have shoes on. Wow, interesting. I mean, I think their colors. I mean, the colors of their clothes. Different colors they got too. So that's interesting too. Okay, and the Navajo women and men at Fort Defiance. Yeah, they'd rounded up these people and literally, held them there. They were like kept in prison camps. It was terrible. Did you know that up to 1978 that the government was still going in and taking children from their families, and putting them in white man's schools and separating them from their families so they couldn't learn their traditions, all the way up to 1978.
I knew it was at least until the early 70s because they were doing it in the 60s.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. I thought 1978. Holy bucket load. Okay, so oops. Let me get to this. Traditional weapons, bows and arrows. They had, come on. Here's
go back to that last one.
The arrows? Okay.
Yeah. Zoom in. I'm going to show something. Look how many feathers they got on theirs.
Yeah.
Where most other tribes would only, or other, arrow makers would only have half as many feathers. I just noticed that, like, look how long those feathers are.
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
Huh. Interesting. Okay. And here's some of their weapons they would have. We know this is a coup stick, their club. Here's an axe thing with a spike on it. You got your knife and your hatchet, your tomahawk type deal.
Is that a heart in there?
Looks like it. Almost looks like a heart, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. It's very intricate little sheath for that. This thing,
yeah, those are tiny beads.
Yeah. Yeah, they're known for their beadwork, for their silversmithing, and for the rhinestones, the rhinestones that are out
turquoise.
There. Yeah, turquoise. That's the word I'm looking for.
Turquoise.
Turquoise, yes. Okay. Here's a spear, a stone spear.
That's obsidian.
Yeah, obsidian. Cool. Okay, here's some more stone tools of the day from the earlier Indians. You got probably, this is a stone knife, spear, arrows. I suppose this is an arrow, spear. This is probably a spear too. And then you get to the modern day.
Sitting bull.
Yeah. I didn't know. It just showed. I typed up Navajo and they had guns. I didn't even see the name on there. Look at that, Sitting Bull. Interesting. I know they like to decorate their guns. That's for sure.
I wonder if that meant he wanted to kill Sitting Bull, or
I don't know. I know the Indians did have. They still had the flintlock guns when everybody else. They were, like I said, even in 1876, the fight with Custer. Most of the Indians that were fighting Custer were shooting him with arrows. They didn't shoot with guns. They were all shooting with arrows, even though it was 1770 or 1876, and they had repeating rifles. Here's a guy with a lance, and I think I'm at the end. Oh boy, I managed to make it all the way through. Okay. Wow. Well, people, I hope you learned something from all of that. It was interesting to you as it was for me. But like I said, I learned a lot, and I got really interested when I started studying about Kit Carson. And he was out in Taos and New Mexico area, battled with the Navajo. Then he became an Indian agent. He was tough as nails, but I think he was kind of cruel in the beginning in his younger years. He battled Indians, went to California, battled the Mexican army, worked for the military as a scout and a guide. When there was several stories where he talked about how the Indians came and they were out there in the winter the one time, and the Indians came at night and stole their herd of horses from the mountain men. And him and the mountain men went after the horses. It took them 2 days of riding through the snow and the cold to catch up with the Indians and the herd of horses as they were taking them back to their village. And when they caught up to them, they waited till late night. They went there and they picked up the horses. They were real quiet and got all the horses, got out of the village, headed back to theirs. And Kit Carson said, listen, they stole our horses. We need vengeance. So he asked for volunteers, and about half the guys went back, and half the guys went back to the campsite, and they just waited till the first Indian woke out of his slumber, out of his tent or whatever he had, his teepee, and who knows what they had at their camp. But anyway, they said once the first one came out, he said they just let her rip and started firing, killed almost all of them. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cruel. And there was another time he was hired to haul 17 loaded wagons to stock a ranch, and went to Independence, Missouri, where he picked up all the wagons full of stuff. And on the way back, he got stopped by a tribe of Indians. And he says, hey, the Indians were like, hey, we want to come and trade with you. We want to, you got to remember, this is back in the 1840s, 50s, right in that era, early, mid-century. And he says, nope. He says, we are like a naked baby. We have nothing for you. And they were like, oh, no, we want to come and talk and smoke and, blah, blah. And he says, nope, you're not coming in. So he got all his guys to load their guns and be ready. And he went out there and talked with them, and they still wouldn't leave. So he just shot one. Just like that. And I'm thinking, you did what? And you didn't expect to maybe get killed? But they seen that the guy got shot. They gathered him up and they went away and left him alone. I was like, wow, talk about gutsy, you know? I mean, think about it. I think he said there was a couple hundred of them, you know, in the tribe that came up there, and you got a couple hundred guys against your 20 guys that you got hauling the wagons, and you shoot one, they could come back the next night or that night and wipe you from the face of the earth.
They could come back in 20 minutes.
Yeah. But you know,
wasn't there, I'm sorry, but wasn't there one of those Spaniards did that to like one of the Mexicans when they came over? He just pointed a gun and shot him dead or something.
Yes. Yeah. They did that. I don't remember which one, but I think it was one of the Spaniards.
Yeah, one of them, he was just like, hey, you don't like this? And then they ended up killing a bunch of them the rest of that day or something.
Yeah.
Montezuma, or I don't know who it was, but yeah,
okay. I think
it just reminded me of that event.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, anyway, let's see. Carson City I don't think is named after Kit Carson. No. I don't think so. I don't believe Kit Carson was raised.
It was Benny Carson. He was a car dealer.
Yeah, no,
I'm kidding.
Esley says Kit Carson was raised on the Navajo res at the age of no, he was not. That is false information. Kit Carson was raised out east. His father gave him sold him or not sold him, but made him an indentured servant to a leather guy, you know, makes saddles, a saddle maker. That's what I want to say, saddle maker. And Kit was not happy. He came from a pretty good sized family. He was not happy. He stayed there for a little while. He was a good worker and everything, but packed up his stuff one day and headed west. He says there's more adventure out here. And he hooked up with a fur trading company, and or he got in a wagon train. He had out west, and he got hooked up with a fur trading company, and became a fur trapper at a young age. Well, I can't remember what it was. He was, 16, 17, something like that, and then he went out trapping, and that's where he got to know the mountains. And he trapped for many years out there because it was a good money making thing. I mean, he traveled up and down the Platte River, up and down through to New Mexico, California. He even got in trouble a few times because when you went into Mexican territory or Mexico, the Spanish rule was that you had to get a license to trap in their country. And he didn't get a license, and they came and took all his furs that he had been trapping. And so they kind of had to go in there and trap and then sneak out with the furs before the Mexican government would find out about it. Eventually they did get a license to trap there, but like I said, and then the trapping kind of wore out. The beavers, weren't doing so good. And but he did go to some of the first rendezvous that there were there. He was known for being a tough guy. Got in a squabble with another trapper one time, and they literally almost had a duel. They would run at each other on their horses with their guns and shoot, and that's how they did it. Not just stand there, and they would ride and shoot, and the other guy shot, missed, and Kit hit the guy, and the squabble was over how the guy was treating his wife or some Indian lady or something like that. But anyway, it was
a duel for honor.
Yeah, basically when they were squabbling, that it's a duel to the death there, kind of, shoot your gun and maybe you'll survive. That's kind of how it went. But after him. Lucky says he thinks it is named after him. I cannot tell you, but I didn't think so, but it could be. So check that out. Maybe I'll click that. Okay. Is it or is it not? Carson City is named for the famous frontiers and scouts Christopher Kit Carson during his 1843 and 1844 expedition. Thank you, Lucky. I tell you, I didn't know. I didn't think so, but maybe he hooked up with this John C. Fremont, and Fremont was the guy that really made Kit famous. Fremont was a military guy, hired Kit Carson for a lot of the scouting and So anyway, Fremont had named Carson City nearby river for Kit Carson's Fremont scout. Pioneer Abram Curry arrived in Eagle Valley in 1858 and soon thereafter surveyed and plotted a town site. Let's see if I've ever heard of still decorate street signs here. Brought the richest part of the valley for $500 and a herd of horses. The far-sighted optimist Curry set aside 10 acres expressly for the construction of a capital. This was before the formation of Nevada Territory in 1861. Carson City was soon designated both the territorial capital and the county seat of the new Amersfoort County. President Abraham Lincoln recognized the importance of Nevada's silver and gold to the Union Civil War effort. Signed the proclamation that ushered Nevada into statehood on October 31st, which is Halloween, 1864. Carson City was selected as a state capital at the Constitutional Convention and has retained that honor to the present day. Kit Carson did die in 1864. So too bad for him. But anyway, interesting facts. Thank you.
That's Nevada. I thought they said never mind.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we learn all the time. I appreciate it. I got the best moderators out there.
I was thinking, Carson City, New Mexico or Arizona, but never mind. I had
Jeannie's in the house. Enjoy your evening, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. I hope you learned something. Like I said, I really enjoyed that book, the autobiography of Kit Carson. Like I said, he was really saddened one time where this lady was captured by the Indians, and he wanted to go in there and save her. And when finally he couldn't, because one of the generals or the captains or whatever wouldn't let him go. And finally, after one of the Indians shot and hit the captain in the chest, didn't kill him because his pocketbook or something saved him. He finally let him go. And as they came in, the Indians killed the lady just before they got into the camp, which saddened him very much. He was very, very upset by that. Anyway, Pa Joe says he lives in Modoc lands. There's a battlefield just a few miles away called the Snake War. Yes, I do know of the Snake Wars. There's lava fields out there, and the Modoc held off the military for quite a long time by hiding in the lava fields. It was like a giant fortress with lots of tunnels and cliffs and caves and all kinds of. It was very hard terrain to run on, and the Modoc were out there fighting. It was that's in California area. But anyway, of course, that was another one of those things where the white man came in and said, "We want this land," and they said, "No, we're not giving it up." And they said, "Yes, you are," and get out. And they didn't want to, and they tried to fight for their land, and of course, they lost. Yes, we named Las Vegas downtown Fremont. Oh yeah, off the hook is right. There you go. Anyway, that's about all I got. I hope you learned something about the Navajo, and if you're more interested in that, I say go out, take a look, read up on it, do some study on Kit Carson, do some study on the Navajo. It's really interesting, very interesting.
I just
Anyway.
want to say this about the Navajo. The Navajo people that I have met were very, very proud people. I mean,
Yes.
extremely proud. And, you know, they worked in silver by a gentleman I knew who was stationed at the Marine base. You know, he was just very proud to be a Marine. You know, his wife, you know, did jewelry and different things, and they weaved, and they were just very industrious people. And when he wasn't, you know, I kept bumping into him at the flea market and different places where they, you know, kept trying to sell their wares. And then the money that they made from the flea markets, they sent back to New Mexico to the family back there because they were so poor and trying to get around and get by. So, but just very proud people. And I'm very proud to have known them. And I can't think of their names at the moment, but you know, for the years that I did know them, he got shipped overseas, and I got out of touch with them. But very good peoples, and the other folks that I've known of Navajo descent, very good people. Other folks, yeah, they're nice, but I don't know. There was just something about, you know, I'm Navajo, and that in and of itself was, you know, they were very proud. A lot of people claim to be Cherokee, but if you're Navajo, that's, I don't know, it's something different in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my 10 cents, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, that's a pretty good 10 cents worth. You know, that, like I said, they didn't seem, I know they had a big battle with the Spanish, taking over their lands back in the 1600s. And they won. They literally chased the Spanish off. They took a bunch of their horses, and that's what introduced horses to the United States, basically, because the Spaniards were holding the horses because they knew if the Indians got the horses, they could become very powerful. And by keeping the horses and not letting them, you know, trading, they could stay empowered. But what happened was they employed the Indians to take care of the horses and work the horses and ride the horses and so forth and so on. And eventually, you know, when it came time, they got, you know, the Indian, once the Spaniards were beaten back, they took the horses and so forth. And you know the rest of the story, right? But anyway, okay. I gotta find your thing here, and I did have one here. Let me see. Hang on a second. I did. I got a folklore. It talks about. Oh, I wanted to talk about this too for a second, and I got a. Okay, it was a creation story. We always like a creation story, don't we? Okay. And the creation story, it's which I'm just going to read this first part. It was talking about the Navajos, and it was talking about Navajos more than recorded a great creation and migration myth of the Navajos. More than 2/3 of the story is told before the first mention of an existing gens is made. Men, or the apotropic animals, and the antimorphic gods, as they may better be considered, had ascended through 4 lower worlds to this world. They had passed through many dire vicissitudes. They had increased and warred and wandered. They had been almost exterminated by evil powers. their sacred brothers, the Navajo war gods, had been born, had grown to manhood, and had in turn slain the evil tormentors of their race before the ancestors of the nuclear gens of the Navajo were created. A portion of the legend which gives an account of the origin and ascension of each gen and the origin of the name fills 50 closely written folio manuscript pages. To repeat it in its entirety would make this paper too long and would convey blah blah blah. Okay, we ain't gonna go into that. But anyway, I thought it was interesting because they always, and again, they're ascending through the worlds, and this is a lower world to this world. So did they come from the sky then? Or did they come
had ascended? Let's wait. Had ascended, meaning they came up through 4 lower worlds to this.
So that means
they came up from the bottom and came through 4 different layers.
So they
4
came from
lower worlds to this world.
So they came from the bottom up.
They had passed through many dire vicissitudes.
So they came from inner Earth.
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah, I got a buddy of mine who keeps saying that's where we came from. That's where the aliens live. They live inside of the Earth. And through stories like this, you got to wonder. 4 lower worlds. Well, that's quite a journey. Maybe they did come from there. I mean, we've read stories where there were, the Indians lived underground and then they grew this tree and they climbed up the tree and then the earth broke away and they, came up to the sunlight. Remember that one?
Yeah.
So.
And for a lot of people, go back and for younger folks, Admiral Byrd is not one of those folks who are high on the list, but he described how he flew into inner Earth.
Yep.
He went to the North Pole and flew right in.
Yeah, exactly. So interesting thoughts on this. I like.
If anybody wants to know about inner Earth, you should read about the reports of what Admiral Byrd talked about. I mean, he was interviewed back in the late 50s, early 60s in black and white, and where he talks about it, and everybody's just like, yeah, okay. But yeah, inner Earth.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is
I would believe in the inner Earth before I'd believe in a flat Earth.
Yeah, well, I believe there's an inner Earth because there's so many stories that talk about that inner Earth, that people came from inside the Earth, and too many to just dismiss. If it was just like one, I could say, okay, but then again, I wonder too, is if there was more to it, because there's a lot of tribes, or well, maybe not the tribes, but there's other cultures that talk about, the coming from the sky gods, we came from the sky. So maybe some of us came from the sky and some of us came from inner Earth. Could be.
Well, there's an interesting thing. It's like the peoples came from inner Earth, but then the elders or the sky gods came from the sky. Yes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
we got elders that came from, the planet Sirius, from the stars, the dog star. And, but we came from the inner Earth ourselves. We're mud people kind of thing. So wait a minute. So,
Lucky says there are a lot of Sasquatch sightings.
And the ancestor part of it, when they say the ancestor.
What'd you say?
Sasquatch cave around caves in inner Earth. That's an interesting
Well, it is a thought. I mean, I ain't going to throw any of it out the
observation.
door. I mean, it is a good observation.
No, there are caves
No,
around here that nobody knows about. I've been in Climax Cave down near Climax, Georgia. Say, um, and you literally, crawl down into this area, and where very, very few people have ever climbed, and you can go for literally miles underground. And you say, well, what? Well, yeah, there's a whole cave system underneath this area around here. And so, how do you know this? What's down there and what comes out? And it just, how do you know?
well, yeah, you don't. But like I said, I don't know myself, but I ain't gonna say that there isn't. I mean, it's a good possibility. I mean, we don't go around saying, oh, here's Bigfoot, he's running around, Sasquatch is there he is. I mean, it could be, you only need one cave to, it doesn't, yeah, and not every cave is going to go to inner Earth. I don't know. I mean, can't
Right.
say.
Well,
but,
I've been in.
I mean, if
anybody's been in, if anybody's been in the great state of Kentucky and had the opportunity to go to Mammoth Cave, that cave is.
I did.
You've been to Mammoth Cave?
Yes, I have. I took the tour. It's huge.
I know. Isn't it something?
Yes, it is. I mean, I was really surprised, and they were talking how big it is and how far it goes, and I was just, wow, I couldn't believe it. You could have a whole society live underground there.
If there was a way to go to inner Earth, it'd be like Mammoth Cave, Holy mackerel.
And the thing is they don't know where that cave goes. I mean, they're still exploring the thing. I mean, I seen the pictures, and it goes so far, and then there's rivers under there, they said, and some of the tunnels get flooded out, and oh my gosh, and they're still exploring spots where they're finding relics and things like that are in there, animals that wandered down there from prehistoric times. Makes you wonder, how did how did an animal get down there? Why would an animal go way down in there in that cave, and in the first place? Maybe to die, or if it's so far down deep in there, what else was down there?
Right. And what if, for example, there was a scorched earth situation, and they were just so scared that they just went as deep as they could go to get away from whatever was going on,
Yes,
on the surface.
Elderberry says the desert has them, white humanized gangly creatures that make clicking noises. The earth is open there. Yes. S. Lee says dark ant, red ant, dragonfly hard beetle, stone carrier beetle, coyote dung beetle, and black beetle. I don't know what that means. I guess I missed a part of that. Elderberry says underground creatures have been coming up forever there. Yeah. Calaveras Cave.
Yeah, there are caves. There are caves all over the place. That's one of the things. There's some caverns down around Inverness, Florida, that's out there in the middle of. It's just a hole in the ground. Yep. But as a Boy Scout, back in the '60s, we went in this one, and oh my God, you looked over the edge, and it was just straight down forever. I mean, we should not have been in there as little as Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. But they said, "Oh, there's a cave down there, and we're all going to go in," and we did. But let me tell you, I wished I could find it now as an adult and go back in there, because it was just absolutely just, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
most folks don't know it. So there are paths and things under us. What's to say that some of these, I don't mean that every cave is going to go there, but what's to say that some of these caves,
Hmm.
like Jules Verne, you know, uh, Journey to the Center of the Earth, you know, that was one of those readings as a child that we had to, summer reading, read these, this. Well, it was an interesting read, you know, and he made it believable. When you read it, you was like, oh my God, you felt like you were there.
Hmm.
Movies don't do it justice.
Yep.
Cowboy boots.
Yeah. Doesn't the government go around and block off a lot of those caves
Yes.
now? It's either to protect us or keep whatever's in them, or keep us from going in them, one or the other. So,
Well, an
yeah.
interesting thing, since we mentioned Mammoth Cave, when I was there, it's been 25 years ago. It was in '99. So at the entrance to the cave, they had moved some rocks there at the entrance to the cave where people went in, and come to find out that by moving those rocks, they had disturbed the airflow inside the cave, and they had to put up a piece of plywood that looked like hell and some plastic so that they could regulate the air going in and out of Mammoth Cave. Do you remember that? When did you go?
Let's see, 90, 90 or 91.
So they that was probably at that time the rocks were still there and they didn't have the plastic and the 2x4s up.
No, they didn't. I don't think they did. I remember going there and it was really cool. And yeah, I didn't see, it didn't look like hell. It was beautiful, beautiful.
Right. Well, at the very entrance. So what they learned though in a very few years is that just because they had moved some boulders to make it easier to get in and out of, that they had screwed with the natural breathing of the cave at Mammoth Cave. And so they put
Yeah.
up this 2x4s and some plywood and some plastic, and you had to go through there. But anyway, so as that's how fragile caves are. Is was my 10 cents on that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
from the
I mean,
time you were there in the early '90s, from the time till the time we were there in the late '90s, they had already learned this lesson. I would love to go back and see what they did.
yeah, they probably figured it out and put up a wall now. I mean,
Well,
who
they had a
knows?
wall up. That's just it. And they had some plastic draped over it, and they would
But
lift the plastic so that they could regulate the flow. That it was very interesting how they had it.
hmm, yeah.
Yeah, they
Well,
had they talked about it in the presentation, and they said, they admitted we screwed up. This is how fragile caves are. We screwed up, and this is our quick fix for right now. So,
yeah.
but that was, that's still been 25 years ago. But anyway, so we're going to do a story. It's 11.
Oh, yep. I got it pulled up already. I do enjoy the discussion. Oh,
Yes.
I had the most interesting thing, and I just want to tell everybody, but posting these shorts, with some cabins. I went to Heritage Days, and not I went to Heritage Days in the town I'm at, Watford City, and I took it upon myself. I seen an old guy sitting over one of the picnic tables as I was eating, and he was way the heck over there. And after I got done eating, I got up and I walked over there, and he's sitting all by himself. And he was an older guy. I didn't know how old he was, but I sat down and I said hi, and I had a nice little conversation. The guy's name is George. and we talked about horses, old time equipment, and he wanted to talk about horse runaways, which was kind of an interesting one. But we talked and talked for good half hour or better. And when I got all done, I told him my name and he told me his, and he says, I'm George. And I shook his hand and he got up and he says, I'm 98 years old. And I couldn't believe it. He looked in pretty darn good shape for being 98 years old. And he says, I'm on my way to live to 102. And I says, what? And he says, yeah, my dad lived to 101 and I'm going to beat him. And I thought, wow, but it was so cool. He talked about driving wagons, horse-drawn wagons and horse-drawn farm machinery and all those things. I mean, talk about getting close to somebody who lived back in the day. I mean, of course, we can't go back that far, but as far as back as you could possibly get right now, you know what I mean? And I encourage you all to, if you meet up with an older person like that, go have a good conversation with them. They got a lot of wisdom and probably a lot of good stories, because I could have talked to that guy for a couple more hours, I swear. But quite the interesting, best highlight of the day there. Was better than the farm machinery. But I couldn't believe he didn't look a day over probably 75 or 80. That's what he looked like, about 75 or 80. And got up. He had a cane, but he walked off good as ever. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, enough of my rambling. I'm just saying.
No, I'm just sitting here thinking I'll be 71 Sunday, and I hope I can make it.
Can you believe it? I tell you what, if I end up to be 98 and I could walk around as good as that guy could, well, I tip my hat to you, George. If you're ever listening to this show, I tip my hat. I hope I make it like that.
Anybody who can make it and walk around at that age,
I
hope I can do so good,
For 98, he didn't look like he was 90. After I shook his hand and then he told me how old he was, I thought, oh my gosh, did I shake his hand too hard? Did I worried about that for like 2 hours thinking, did I shake his hand too hard? I hope I didn't break his bones or something,
Did I break the poor fella?
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't know. Anyway. Looks like we're doing the creation of men tonight. Is this the right one?
Yep. As told by Esquire Johnson.
Isn't that something? I was reading a creation story. We're just talking about creation. How synchronized are we?
I know. See, I was going to mention that earlier, but you picked that up, so that's okay. Wait, let me get mine pulled up because I can change the size. Hang on just
Rugby, North Dakota, I've been there, has a farming tractor museum. It's fun to talk to the old time. Yes, it was fun. Good job, Pa Joe. I've been to Rugby and the farm tractor museum, and I went to the steam gas show up in North Freedom up there too. So good deal. Anyway.
Oh, and so here's my 10 cents before I start this. September 19th was my Uncle Arnie, or my pops, who adopted me. Today would be his birthday. And so I just want to say, in honor of my pops, who's been gone since 1999. So just weird there in that respect too, but just honor him with this story. And thanks, Pop, for adopting me. But we ready there?
Yes, we are. You're all good to
Okay.
go.
Okie dokie. Let me get my little mousey ready here. The creation of men, Indians, told by Esquire Johnson. Esquire Johnson's account of the origin of good and evil as it was told him by old men. Shagadogwayaweg is often translated false face, but the literal meaning is the great one who protects them, mankind, from sickness, pestilence, and is considered to be of the wind people. Above, in the center of the blue, people lived before there was any earth down here. In the middle of the village up there stood a tree covered with white blossoms. When the tree was in bloom, its blossoms gave light to the people. And when the blossoms fell, there was darkness. One time, a woman in that village dreamed, and in her dream, an Angui said to her, a man, that tree with white blossoms on it must be pulled up by the roots. When the woman told her dream, the people were silent. Some time passed, and the woman dreamed again. The Angui, the man, in her dream said, a circle must be dug around the tree and the tree pulled up by the roots. Then something giving more and better light will come. The woman told her dream a second time, but still the people took no heed of it. She dreamed a third time, and again was told that the tree must be pulled up. Then a man said, I think we should give heed to this dream. We may have better light, and the people will have cause to rejoice. His advice was listened to. Men cut around the roots of the tree. When the roots were loosened, the tree sank down and disappeared. The chief of the people said, I did not heed this dream, for I knew something would happen to the people if the tree were pulled up. He was angry and ordered that the woman who had the dream should be brought and pushed into the hole left by the tree. Men caught her and threw her into the hole. Now that the tree with the white blossoms was gone, it was dark all the time. The woman fell and fell. The hole was deep and long, but at last she came out into bright light into our sky. And looking down, she saw only water. It was well known that in very ancient days, all animals had the gift of speech, by which they communicated with one another as freely as human beings do at the present time. Down under the blue, there was just one enormous body of water on which there were multitudes of various kinds of waterfowl and aquatic animals amusing themselves after their own fashion. One of the duck family looked up and saw a dark object coming down from the sky. The duck cried out to the other birds and animals, some strange being is coming down to us. A council was called at once to decide how they could prepare a resting place for this being, who might not be fitted to live on the water as they did. A duck said, I'll dive and find if there is any bottom to this water. After a time, the duck came to the surface, shot into the air, and fell back, lifeless. Several water birds made the same attempt with a similar result. All the people that lived in the water were there. Loon said to Fish Hawk, go and meet that creature in the air and Hold it till we are ready for you to come down. Fishhawk went, and they saw him meet the woman, for it was a woman. Turtle said, I'll take care of her. Loon said, You can't. You are too fond of eating. Horned Snake said, I'll take care of her. She can sit between my horns. I'll carry her wherever I go. Loon said, You can't care for her. You are poisonous. You would kill her. Meanwhile, one person after another was trying to bring earth from the bottom of the sea. At last, Helldiver brought up a little. Loon was chief, and when Helldiver came up, he sent all that kind of people after more dirt. Loon said, Put the dirt on Turtle's back. Turtle was willing, and as fast as the divers brought dirt, Beaver, with his tail, pounded it down on Turtle's back to make it solid. When Loon thought there was enough dirt, Fishhawk came down with the woman. Beaver and duck people kept at work, making the earth larger and larger. As it grew, more beavers and ducks were ordered to work. Bushes began to grow, little red bushes, like water reeds. Soon, the woman gave birth to a child, a girl. The child quickly grew to be a young woman and to be very active. She walked here and there and watched the birds and animals, and once when she was wandering around, she met a nice-looking young man. They fell in love with each other, and by their union came night and day. At daybreak, the young woman went to meet her husband. At twilight, she came home, and the man went away. One evening, after they had parted, the young woman turned to look at her husband and saw a big turtle walking along where the man had just been. She thought, A turtle has deceived me. She told her mother about the man and said, I'm going to die. You must put my body in the ground and cover it up well. 2 stalks will grow from my breast, and on each stalk an ear will come. When the ears are ripe, you must pick them and give one to each of the boys that are born to me. The younger woman gave birth to twin boys and died. The mother buried her daughter, and soon 2 stalks came up out of her grave, and this was the origin of corn. The boys grew quickly. They were strong and healthy, but the younger was an awkward, ugly-looking, disagreeable fellow with a head like a lump of rough flint. Once, when the elder brother was off by himself, he was lonesome, and he thought he would try to make something. And so he took mud, and when he had molded it into the shape he wanted, he put it down and asked, Can't you jump? It didn't move. And then he blew on it, till at last it jumped. And he had created the grasshopper. Then he thought he would make something that would fly higher. So of red clay, he made the cherry bird. After he had the clay molded, he set it up and told it to fly in the air. The bird flew and lighted on a bough. That was the first bird. One after another, he made all of the birds of the air. Then he thought he would make something that would run on the ground. So he shaped a deer, brought it to life, and said to it, You must run faster. He blew on it and pushed it, and it ran off. In the same way, he made different kinds of animals. And then he thought, maybe I can make something like my of the mud. He made something that looked like himself, but now in some way he found that he had a spirit in his body, and he wanted the thing he had lying on the ground to have a spirit too. He wanted to give it some of his own, but didn't know how. At last he bent down and blew into its mouth. He hadn't blown into the mouth of any other creature he had made. The image began to move. The young man raised it up and made it stand on its feet and told it to whoop. The new man whooped. He had a fine voice. Then he walked off a little way and turned and looked at the young man. The elder brother had a special place to sit when he made all these creatures. About the time he made man, the younger brother found the place, and while watching his brother, he thought, I will make a man too. He went away alone, made something as nearly like himself as he could, and brought it to life. It didn't look like a man. It was a strange creature. And when its maker saw that it wasn't a man, but some ugly, deformed thing, he said to it, my brother has made a man. He is over there. Go and kill it. The elder brother was watching the younger, for he was afraid he would make some harmful animal. When he heard him tell the creature he had made to go and destroy man, he went back to his own place. Caught cherry bird and pulling out the hind leg of grasshopper, gave it to the bird and said, go and scare my brother. As the bird took up the leg, the bird became very large, and the leg was like the leg of a man, and it was bloody. The bird flew near, perched on a limb, and called out, Goa! Goa! When the younger brother saw what the bird had in its beak, he left his work, ran home, and said to his grandmother, a bird came and perched just where I was at work. My brother made it frighten me. I was afraid it would pull my leg out, so I ran. When the elder brother came, the grandmother said, you shouldn't frighten your brother. The first man made was wandering about alone. The young man saw him once in a while and saw that he was lonesome. Then he said to himself, I will make something like my grandmother. He made it out of mud, breathed into it, and told it to walk. Then he found the man and said, I give you this one. You must always go together. When the woman sat down by the man, he thought that her arm was in the way, and his was also. He said, we will cut them off. They cut them off and laid them one aside. When the elder brother came along and saw what they had done, he said to himself, this won't do. I will give them blood and pain. And from himself he gave them blood and pain, and then he put their arms on and healed them. Before that, they had neither blood nor pain. To the man and woman he said, I have made you. You will have children like yourselves. You must hunt the animals I have made, kill them and eat their flesh. That will be your food. I am going above the blue. You will not live forever. You will die and your spirit will go above the blue. When the younger brother found that the elder brother had gone away, he saw the man and woman and talked with them. He said, I am going to make a man. He got earth and formed it as best he could, blew into its mouth, and told it to stand up and whoop. It said, Ho, ho! He pushed it from behind and made it leap. It was a frog, as large as a man. The younger brother was angry and he said, I can't make a man. My brother has made a man and a woman and other animals. What I have made shall turn to man eaters and animal eaters and eat up what my brother has made. When the elder brother looked down from the blue and saw that the animals his brother had made were trying to eat up the people and the animals he had made, he came down, put the man eaters in the ground, and told them to stay there as long as the earth remained. This work done, he went back above the blue. When the younger brother found that his animals were in the ground, he was angry and said, I will try again to make a man. He got mud and began. Every little while he went and looked at the man his brother had made. When his man was finished and brought to life, he was an ugly looking creature. His maker told him to whoop. He could say only, ho, ho, and that was Shagadoyowawiga Goa. His maker said, go and eat all the creatures my brother has made. When the elder brother saw what was taking place, he came from the blue to put the Shagadogoega into the ground. But that one spoke first and said, don't destroy me. I want to live on the earth. I will be your servant and help you. I will go around in the woods. The ashes of fire will be my medicine for men. If anyone was sick, I will take ashes and scatter over them, and they will be well. The elder brother couldn't put Shagadoyegwa into the ground, for he had spoken first. So he let him stay on the earth. The younger brother said to his grandmother, I have tried to make a man, but I cannot. Now I will cause the people my brother has made to do all manner of evil. The elder brother went back to the blue. And how about that one for a story?
And there we go. Cool.
And you know, that is one of those creation stories, you know. So
Yeah.
was in the blue. And
Yep.
so before the woman landed, you know, all of the animals, you know, found Turtle, which, you know, Turtle Island uh, is a respected story among native tribes as to, you know, how Mother Earth got here, you know. So
Yeah, it did sound kind of like the Bible story, similar to the Bible story. Yep. Kind of interesting. But we like those interesting stories. Brent Ray, thank you for coming. Haven't seen you here before. Good to be here. Thank you.
and if it isn't the Bible story, it's the native story of Turtle Island.
Yeah. Well, you know, the funny part is, you know, in a lot of stories, it always says like the animals could talk.
Yep.
It really, in the beginning, the animals could talk, and it makes you wonder, you know, to say that, like, for instance, and I've had this theory, and anybody out there, this is just my opinion, people, but here's my thoughts on this, and I don't know if you'll agree or not, but you know, we speak with speech, right? Well, what if before we could speak with speech, we talked with our minds? And you know, the animals, we know they don't speak and talk in voices, but they must talk with their minds, because you know, you'll see pack of dogs, they look at each other, and then they know what to do. They know who's going to go where, or whatever, or horses, or you know, pretty much anything. Birds are flying in the sky. How is it that they all stay together? Then they know where to go. Yeah, sure, I can understand they got an internal thing to know where to go, you know, like north, south, east, west. But what about when they twist and turn, or you know, here I'm taking point on the V shape, you know, with the geese type thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Uh
And think about those humongous schools of fish
yes.
that
Yes.
turn and twist and dive, and you know. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
But here's the big thing. So how do you prove that maybe we didn't talk at one point? You start looking back at the cavemen things, and you know, they all wrote in pictures, like the Egyptians. All the writing was literally in pictures. You know what I'm saying? They had symbols, but the writing was always in pictures, you know, like a cow, a horse. Even Chinese writing to this day is basically symbols, which is pictures of things like houses or people or canoes or whatever, to make, and then they combine those symbols to make words. You know what I'm saying? So so what if at some point or another time we communicated with our brain? We didn't have words that spoke out of our mouth. So when we went to write a letter, you would draw pictures. Just like you told me that when you had your vision of the Mother Mary or whatever, at some point she didn't speak to you in words. It was more of a feeling, but she spoke to you. You knew what she said, but you said, you know, it wasn't like she was, words were coming out of her mouth, right?
images.
Images,
Yep.
yes, exactly.
Images and phrases.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. What if we all spoke like that at one point in time?
We did. Because
And
here's a here's the story about how the animals quit talking to us.
yeah,
It was because mankind had stopped um, giving honor to animals. Because the whole thing was is like, look, we as animals, we're giving ourselves to you as Creator has asked, and they just but man just started taking it for granted, and
yeah,
um, and so when man started taking animals for granted, then that's when the animals quit talking to man.
I see.
So those are the ancient stories. But here's the thing: one of the biggest languages was sign language. If you went out hunting, folks weren't yelling and whooping and chatting it up. No, they were all headed somewhere, and a lot of times they were at a half trot, or you know, they were yeah, but they were at a half trot going somewhere. They just didn't walk. No, they were, most of them were running a lot of the times. So they're jogging along, and you know, they ain't got time for chatter. And what are they going to chatter about anyway? The hunt, who's going to do or whatever. But they've done this so many times before that they don't want to scare the game away. They want to sneak up on whatever it is. And for those of us who've been in the woods and have been hunting and whatever, you can sense things. And that is that sixth sense. That is talking to the animals. That is, we still can communicate if we will give honor to the animals. We were talking about Duggar today. Everybody knows who Duggar is, who's still outside, by the way. But he lets me know when he wants something to eat. He sits down and puts his paw up and goes, "Hey, I'm hungry. Give me something to eat. And so if I give him one hot dog later on, I'll go, "Hey, you want another one?" And he'll sit down and throw his paw up and go, "Yep, I want one." So he talks to me. And sometimes it's in yelps or a bark or something. But the thing is that it's a lot of eyesight. We were talking about how different dogs and different animals communicate just by looking and by a simple hand language, and the dog will go or come or whatever. So animals, that's using that psychic energy along with just nothing more than a snap of the fingers or a hand sign or something like that. There's a bunch of words in there, you know and yes, we can communicate, and yes, the animals communicate to us. So we
Oh yeah.
just have to accept it.
Mm-hmm. Well, remember, we discussed this a long time ago, but if you remember that the one universal language across all Indian nations was sign language.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure there was a little different here and there, but mostly they said it was mostly the same. So all tribes could literally communicate with all the other tribes through sign language. And I thought, how interesting is that? You may speak different, but all the sign language is the same. Kind of neat. I mean, there's got to be
Well, if
something
you
to.
pointed at something, you were pointing at something. If you pointed at yourself, you meant me, no matter what language. So certain basic things were kind of like obvious.
Yeah, no, I don't know sign language. Looks like S. Lee does. He's saying, here we go. He's saying, I don't know what these mean. Uh, uh, this is a 1. This is a 10. This, I don't know how to do this one. I think this is a 15 equals 15. 15, 10, 1. So, okay, good deal. Thank you. I've learned something tonight.
And there was a way of putting your arm down and having this arm up. And it depended on it may have been if you had your left arm down and your right arm up and you went down, it meant the sun rising or the sun setting, and that
Yeah,
you could, and how many fingers meant how many days or how many moons. So,
yeah,
there were some simple things. So if you put your arm up like this and went down, it was like, okay, it's probably sundown, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And if the arm comes up, it's sunrise. And however many fingers, that's, not hours, but days or possibly, moons, many
Oh,
moons.
Ashley, it looks like he knows a lot about this. Ashley, you know a lot about this stuff. Why don't you come and give me a shout on the email, and I'll have you on, and you can teach us some of this interesting stuff. I don't know what you know, but sounds like you know quite a bit about some of these things. Love to learn from you. Share with the Soul Tribe, I say.
Hey, S. Lee, by the way, my last name on my original birth certificate is David Lee. Actually, it's David Null, but my father's name was Lee. I would have been a Lee had I not been adopted by my uncle, Arnie, whose birthday would be today. So, but anyway, are we related? Are you in Kentucky or Ohio or Virginia by any way?
Don't know. We'll
I
see.
would just be curious.
He says
While we've been,
He says aloha, so maybe he's from Hawaii. I don't know. He says, okay. Sorry, Lucky. I had that up
Oh
for a
yes,
second.
and the Hawaiian Alpha.
Yeah. Come on. This computer's just slow. Yes, and the Hawaiian Alpha is 25 degrees. And then he says aloha. So anyway, I don't know. Are
He's
you from
from a
Hawaii?
different branch of Lee's.
Maybe, yeah. There's a lot of Lees. That's the thing. When you got a common name like Lee, I knew a lot. I knew a bunch of Lees myself, and it's like, well, which Lee tribe are you from? So anyway, I don't know. There's a lot of Lees out there, and
So while we've been yakking,
yes,
I've been pulling cards.
Yes. What do you got for cards tonight?
And here's an interesting thing, because when I flip the cards over, I'm like, yeah, okay. The story I just read had turtle and beaver. Beaver patted to use his tail to put the mud on the turtle's back. The first card I pulled was beaver. The next card I pulled was turtle.
Turtle and beaver. Which one are you going to do first?
So, but that was just to sort of prove that how important and how pulling these cards are succinct to the story. Because I didn't plan on pulling these two cards; they're all upside down, and they're right up. They're the right side up, by the way, too. But I think the cards were just trying to show me, tee hee, see, we're in tune with the story that you just told.
Well, but now because turtle was there, and they made the earth by patting the
beaver. Exactly. The beaver. And so, and that's basically it. The turtle represents, the original Mother Earth by many tribes, and beaver is all about fixing stuff and is the builder. And beaver, the important thing that beaver shows is that every beaver's individual, every beaver's got his own tail kind of thing to pack mud, but they all work together, but as individuals. So it's important to show that, you can keep your individuality, but work together to build a dam and to be successful and to achieve something. So, but turtle is, turtle is Mother Earth in a lot of ways. So, but the two cards that came up, and they're both, well, they're not rodents, but this one is bat. And we haven't had bat in a long time. And the other one is ant. And incidentally, they're both straight up. So give me a second. Let me get something to drink, and I will pull these two cards up. But it's interesting that the story had beaver and turtle in it, and those were the first two cards I pulled because they were at the top of the deck. I had to go down through the deck. But how about that one?
We haven't had turtle on for a long time. We had beaver on like a couple weeks ago. So. But yeah, let's see what they got to tell us tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to give just a quick thing about what turtle says. Yep, turtle is Mother Earth.
Yeah. S. Lee says he lives down by Four Corners area. Been on a leak project before. Well, I guess I hope I at least did a little bit of justice for the Navajos down there. I mean, I do a little bit of studying, and I try to present halfway decent. I mean, I've never been there. I all I have is books and internet to refer to, and I do my best. I just feel bad because like all the stories I read about Kit Carson, he was really cruel to them. But by the time he got to be older, I think he got a soft spot because he kept saying there's been a real injustice being done to these people. And, I mean, so I think as he got older, he realized bad things were happening. So, anyway.
And I have nothing but the highest respect for the Navajo peoples.
Yeah, you know, I
For
mean,
those
I
that I've known, just
yeah, yeah,
So
I know, you know that, you know, I didn't really know much about them, you know, until I started studying because I always grouped the Navajos together with like the Hopi or the Zunis or whatever. I just, you know, put them in. But they had their own unique culture there too, you know.
would love to
So
go sit and smoke a pipe with the elders. Just go
yeah,
sit and listen.
I would too. I'd definitely make a trip down somewhere if I had I knew some people. I've been trying to, you know, it's really hard because the like around here we got a lot of Indians and I actually work on the reservation, you know, but uh, most of those people, most of the Indians I've talked to don't know anything about their heritage. And if they do, they're sure not telling me. They just go, I don't know much. Or, you know, don't ask me. I don't know. You got to ask my aunt or my uncle or my grandfather or something because, and it's like, yeah, I do feel bad. I even dated an Indian woman once, you know, and she didn't really know much about her own heritage. And, you know, she liked to go to the powwows once in a while. She even invited me. She she's sometimes in the chat here, and one of the nicest ladies I ever met. But you know, she didn't really know much. Put it that way. She knew a few things, and that was about it. I feel bad for her. She always wanted to learn more. She said so, and she met up to somebody and had a kid, and um, you know, and I hope she gets the kid more involved so the kid learns more about its own, you know, their own culture.
Yep.
Hmm.
Well,
So,
it's like you said, up till 1978 or 80, right? They were still taking kids out of the tribes and separating them.
mhm.
See, they wanted to kill whatever culture was left. They wanted to murderize it, and
Yep.
by separating the families and the kids from the elders who would do the teaching,
Yeah.
that's it.
Like I said, I was surprised that when I read about it that they were still taking the U.S. government was still taking children from the Indians out, you know, maybe around across the whole country to up to 1978, which just like I said, just I can't believe that. That is just unreal. Like well, then again, you know, our government has done some ferocious things,
Yep.
you know, we just don't know about. So anyway,
Yeah, I
go
mean
ahead.
the government's still using us as test subjects,
Yeah.
so just keep that in mind. you
Yeah.
know. So here,
Hmm.
let's go with bat first, okay? Number
That is
42 in my book of secrets that I keep reading from. That's a lie. Sacred bat flew to me from the darkness of the cave, a womb like reflections, answers that it gave. Birth, death, rebirth, cycles of the whole, never ending, just eclipsed, the journey of the soul. So, bat is rebirth. Steeped in the mystery of the Mesoamerican tribal ritual is the legend of bat, akin to the ancient Buddhist belief in reincarnation in Central America. Bat is the symbol of rebirth. The bat has for centuries been a treasured medicine of the Aztec, the Toltec, the Tolucan, and the Mayan peoples. Bat embraces the idea of shamanistic death. The ritual death of the healer is steeped in secrets and highly involved initiation rites. Shaman death is the symbolic death of the initiate to the old ways of life and personal identity. The initiation that brings the right to heal and to be called shaman is necessarily preceded by ritual death. Most of these rituals are brutally hard on the body, the mind, and the spirit. In light of today's standards, it can be very difficult to find a person who can take the abuse and come through it with their balance intact. The basic idea of ancient initiations was to break down all the former notions of self that were held by the shaman to be. This could entail brutal tests of physical strength and psychic ability, and having every emotional button pushed hard. Taunting and spitting on the initiative was common and taught him or her to endure the duress with humility and fortitude. The final initiation step was to be buried in the earth for one day and to be reborn without former ego in the morning. This ritual is very similar to the Night of Fear practiced by natives of Turtle Island. In this ritual, the shaman to be is sent to a certain location to dig his or her grave and spend the night in the womb of Mother Earth, totally alone, with the mouth of the grave covered by a blanket. Darkness and the sounds of animals prowling quickly confront the initiate with his or hers own fears. Turn the page. If that has appeared in your cards today, it symbolizes the need for ritualistic death of some way of the light that of a life that no longer suits your new growth patterns. This can mean a time of letting go of old habits and of assuming the position in life that prepares you for a rebirth, or in some cases, initiation. In every case, bat signals rebirth of some part of yourself or the death of old patterns. If you resist your destiny, it can be a long, drawn out, or painful death. The universe is always asking you to grow and to become your future. To do so, you must die the shaman's death. And just to say that there are so many things going on right now in the world that folks have asked me about things, and I said, you're going to have to adapt. In the last in my 71 years of being here, what's the biggest thing I can tell you? I've had to adapt a lot. Back in the Reagan days, money was tight, and there were a bunch of us contractors, and the housing boom stopped, and there were a bunch of people that got wiped out and had to go to work for next to nothing, sell their businesses out, and it was horrible, and then the boom came back, and then it went around again. So this high low, is cyclical. You know, do you know when it's going to happen? No, but what do people have to do over their length of their lives? Adapt. you know, and Bat is kind of saying that. You know, you got to make ready. You got to die. You got to allow some things to just go. That's that shaman death. That's that letting it go. You might have to change. I never thought I'd be a ditch digger. Well, if you want to eat, then you got to go dig ditches, maybe, or something else. Well, I never thought I'd end up doing this in my lifetime. Well, if you live long enough,
But
you know.
that, and I understand that part about it, but rebirth. I don't know how they get rebirth from Bat. So
You don't have to rebirth what?
I mean, I could see that you have to adapt. That's adapting. But what about the rebirth part of it? See, so
It's
I
the
don't.
letting go of something that is in your life that just needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
And for myself, I spent 3 days on the river without any food or water hardly, and was, nestled between a couple of big palmetto bushes in this little slot in between.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but when I woke up, I was totally different. It took me another day and a half to get off the river after that one night incident. But that ritual death, it's hard to explain. But if you want to move on spiritually, you got to do it. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean any kind of like, oh, I'm going to die, but you need to allow yourself to say, okay, whatever it is. And when I get in the hole, I'm going to find out, oh man, there are things I should have given up. What am I? I'm here for a reason, and the reason is for me to be in this grave and figure out what needs to die and what I need to leave here in this grave. Because when I crawl out, I intend to be a different person. That's the whole point of being in here. I want to be a new person when I crawl out. So maybe I'm having trouble, giving up cigarettes, or I was an alcoholic and a drug, you know, what do I want to, I don't want to be them anymore. I don't want to be that person. So when I crawl out this hole, I'm going to be a changed person, and I intend to stay that way.
I get it.
So but it's up to the person who wants to go through that ritual death. But the ritual death can come in tiny little things like, dang it, I ain't gonna eat that piece of pie. I ain't gonna eat that whole pie. I'm not gonna buy, a 12 pack of beer. I'm gonna buy a quart. There are different things that you can do, to do that ritual death. Give up something like don't eat a whole box of chocolates or something, whatever it might be, and say no. I'm gonna if I eat this box of chocolate, I'm gonna die of diabetes. No, you know, but there are different ways to look and how that you can, you know, decide to give up something so that you can move on and it makes room for future things.
Mm-hmm.
Did that make sense? Did I get too long winded?
Yeah. No, no, I get it. I get it. It started making sense there.
And
I
here's a
sometimes.
back and here's ant, which is patience. So with that, that's boy, talk about an interesting combination here. Oh, tiny ant, your patience grows like the sands of time. Can I learn to be like you, or is it too sublime? Ant can carry a leaf over hundreds of miles just to get it back to the ant hill. Ants in Africa will strip a forest bare when food is scarce. Ant's medicine is the strategy of patience. Ant is a builder like beaver. Beaver, ding ding, and here's ant. So there's two, there are two that move together. Um, is aggressive like badger, has stamina like elk, scrutiny like mouse, and giveaway like turkey, which is interesting because I had a backup card, which was mouse.
Mm,
Every ant in an ant hill is part of the ant group mind, as all the ants work for the queen and the hive. Self sacrifice is part of ant medicine. And so I was talking about beaver because beaver also works, they work together to achieve the goal of the beaver dam. Ant people are greater than ants' other medicines, however, is patience. Ant people are active, community minded folks who see the greater future needs of their town. Ant people are planners like squirrel and are content to see their dreams being built a little at a time. In today's society, that is a rare quality. Patience does have its rewards. Ant people have a knowledge about the sweet victory at the end of the line. There is never a concern about going without. If they are late for the opening of a sale, if what they want is sold out, they are sure that something equal or better is available. If you have ant medicine, you eat slowly and deliberately and are content in knowing that what is yours will come to you. This knowing is good medicine. Listen to that. What is yours will come to you. And if you understand it, this is good medicine. It shows a trust in the universe to provide. That's pretty good medicine right there. If ant meandered into your spread today, it is time to show a little trust and patience in some life situation. You may have forgotten that you will always receive that which you need at the time you need it most. A little trust and patience. You may have forgotten that you will always receive that which you need at the time you need it most. And is working for the good of the whole. Are you? If you are, be assured that the whole wants the same goodness for you and that it will be provided. Have faith. How about that for some cards? Yippee-yi-yo-ki-yay. Wow. So, I thank you all for coming and paying attention tonight, and I hope that these cards mean something to you. Interesting, the synchronicities of the cards, and even within the cards, Ant mentioned Bieber, and
How do you pronounce that? Woo, 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 ah, chi. Awula chi, woo, ah, ola chi. I am never good at. I'm the best misunpronunciator ever known to man. I swear.
You know how to murder words really good.
Yeah, you're way better at getting them than I am.
You can slaughter them words up one side and down the other.
If I could just hear it one time, I'd know how it sounds. That's how I say it. If I could just hear it once. How do you pronounce that? Can you see that on the screen?
I don't know if the Woolachi. Woolachi.
Oh, Woolachi. Yeah. That wasn't too bad. Come on.
No, it looks like you're supposed to pronounce the beginning harder. Woolachi.
Woolachi. Okay. I'll go with that one.
G-E. E-E. Because there's 3 E's.
Yes. E. Yeah. You got it, he says. Thank you for teaching us. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Esley. I'd have never got pronounced it the way you wrote it. I'm glad you put in all those hyphens and O's and E's. And my Native American speaking needs a little tongue twisting to it.
You know me, I've had practice at some of this stuff, and I keep trying,
Yeah, you've had practice. Me, not so much. But anyhow. Anyway, so you get that all the cards tonight? That's it? Okay.
Yep.
It's okay.
I pulled 4 of them.
All right. Okay. Yeah. I know you said that. So, okay. We're good. Another show has commenced. We're up to 96. We're looking for 100. And we've been at this a long time, but each and every show is just as good as the last, if not better and better and better. The large letters are a little louder. That's how it is. Okay, well.
See, I was right.
Yes, you were. Yes, you were. You got la chi. Yeah. Chula chi. Okay, great. I learned something. I'm going to write that down so I won't forget it. But anyway, thank you, everybody. Thank you, David, for coming on. And we're doing another one, and we'll be back next week. And in the meantime, don't forget, we'll be back on Saturday night as usual. And I got a special one during the week here coming up on Thursday night where Trina Phoenix is going to join me Thursday night. So be there or be square for some learning from the other side. So anyway, remember, go out and do something nice for someone else. It will make you feel better. And say hi to your neighbor. Find out those people in your neighborhood. You never know. The way the world works, they may become your tribe at some point in time. So, extend a hand, give somebody a handshake. Like I said, when you find that old guy or old gal, sit down and introduce yourself and have a good conversation with them. It may make your day and put a smile on your face and some memories you will never forget, as I did this last weekend. And again, thank you to that guy named George. I would have caught his last name, but I didn't. He didn't give it to me either. So anyway, either way, it was a great time. I'm going to have a few more shorts because I seen a lot of cool stuff. Settler's Cabin, farm machinery, a blacksmith shop. It was all really cool. Had a great time. I suggest all of you go out there and check those things out. They're probably in your backyard and you just didn't know it. So with that, everybody, go out and be that frequency you want to receive, everyone. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.